Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books so you can find your next read. Let's get started. All right, for this deep dive, you sent us The Great Divide by Cristina Henríquez.
Historical novel.
Yes, set during the construction of the Panama Canal in the early 1900s.
Wow, that's a fascinating period. Lots of potential for drama and intrigue, really.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And Henríquez doesn't shy away from any of it. We're thrown right into the thick of things with multiple characters and storylines weaving together, exploring themes of ambition, family, sacrifice, and the clash between cultures.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where do we even begin with a story this expansive?
Well, Henríquez starts us off with two sisters, Ada and Millicent, living in Barbados.
Sisters, huh? Always a recipe for some interesting dynamics. What's their story?
Millicent is facing a serious illness.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and Ada, desperate to save her, decides to make the journey to Panama to earn money for her surgery.
Panama, huh? It was seen as a land of opportunity back then, wasn't it? With the canal construction and all.
Exactly. Ada sets off with these dreams of a better life. But the reality of the situation quickly sets in.
I can imagine. The journey itself must have been incredibly difficult, let alone trying to survive in a completely new environment.
Absolutely. Henríquez does a great job of depicting the harsh conditions, both on the journey and in the canal zone itself.
I remember that scene where Ada finds shelter in this dilapidated boxcar, surrounded by the sounds of the rainforest. Talk about a sensory overload.
Yeah, it really sets the stage for the challenges she's going to face. It's a stark contrast to the life she left behind.
Definitely a fish out of water story.
But while Ada is trying to navigate this new world, we're also introduced to an American couple, Marion and John Oswald, who arrive in Panama with their own dreams and ambitions.
The Americans. I'm guessing their experience is a little different from Ada's.
In some ways, yes. But Henríquez is clever in how she juxtaposes their initial excitement with an underlying tension. Marion, a botanist, is captivated by the lush landscape, eager to explore.
A botanist in Panama? What a dream. I can see her geeking out over all the exotic plants.
Oh, totally. But then there's John, her husband, a doctor fixated on eradicating malaria. He's almost single-minded in his focus, which already hints at trouble brewing in their relationship.
Conflicting priorities. A classic source of conflict in any story.
Exactly. It's like they're both on this grand adventure, but heading in completely different directions. And as these characters start to settle in, we meet a whole cast of others whose lives intersect with theirs.
Okay, this is where it starts to get really interesting. Give me some examples.
Well, there's Antoinette, the Oswald's cook, who brings a local perspective to the story. And then there's Omar, a young Panamanian laborer who represents the workforce toiling on the canal.
The backbone of the whole project.
Exactly. And of course, we meet Omar's father, Francisco, who's grappling with the rapid changes happening around him. It's like each character embodies a different facet of the canal's impact, giving you a glimpse into how this massive project touched so many lives.
So we've got Ada and Millicent representing hope and desperation, the Oswalds embodying ambition and a clash of priorities, and then you've got the local perspective with Antoinette, Omar, and Francisco.
It's a lot to take in, but Henríquez does a brilliant job of weaving these stories together, slowly revealing the connections and the ripple effects of their actions.
Sounds like we're just scratching the surface here. I'm eager to see how these storylines unfold. So we've got all these characters with their individual stories. But what about the bigger picture? How does Henríquez portray the impact of the canal project itself on Panama?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. She really digs into the complexities of progress and its impact on the people who actually live there. It's not just about building a canal. It's about disrupting existing communities, forcing people to adapt to a new reality shaped by, well, American ambition.
Yeah, you can't just build something that massive without causing some serious upheaval. And who's really benefiting from all this progress?
Exactly. Take the story of Valentina and Nada, for example. These sisters are forced to relocate from their home in Gatun because of the dam construction.
A dam? What's the significance of that?
Well, the dam was a crucial part of the canal project creating Gatun Lake, which was essential for the canal's operation.
Okay, so these sisters are being displaced to make way for this massive infrastructure project. Their story must be heartbreaking.
It is. Their struggle to hold on to their land and their way of life becomes a powerful symbol of the displacement and loss experienced by many Panamanians during that time.
It really makes you think about the human cost of these grand ambitions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, who gets to decide what gets built and who gets displaced in the process?
That's one of the big questions Henríquez raises in the book. It's a question about power, really. who has it and who doesn't, and how those power dynamics shape the lives of ordinary people.
And it's not just about displacement, is it? Henriquez also exposes the brutal working conditions faced by the laborers on the canal. It was a dangerous and often deadly undertaking.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And she highlights the stark inequalities between the American workers and the West Indian workers who were brought in to do much of the heavy lifting.
So even within the workforce, there are layers of division and exploitation.
Exactly. Remember those anecdotes about Omar and his fellow workers? The quinine man. The rivalry between different work gangs.
Yeah, those details really bring those dangers and injustices to life. You can practically feel the sweat, the grime, the constant threat of accidents, and the simmering resentment.
It's like she's saying, look, progress has a price, and often it's the most vulnerable who end up paying it.
It's a powerful reminder that we can't just celebrate achievements without acknowledging the human stories behind them. The sacrifices made the lives lost.
Exactly. And it's not all doom and gloom either. Amidst all the hardship and upheaval, there are also these moments of hope and connection that shine through.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, I was really touched by the friendship that develops between Ada and Omar. Despite coming from such different worlds, they find common ground in their loneliness, their shared experiences of loss, and their desire for a better future.
That's a nice touch. It's a reminder that even in the midst of this massive, chaotic project, human connection can still flourish.
Right. It shows that empathy and understanding are possible, even across cultural and social divides.
And it's not just about personal connections either. Henriquez also explores how this whole canal project reshapes the landscape both literally and figuratively.
You mean the environmental impact?
That too, but also the cultural landscape. The influx of Americans with their technologies and ambitions brings about some pretty dramatic changes, forcing the Panamanians to adapt and navigate a whole new set of rules and expectations.
It's like they're living in two separate worlds, even though they're occupying the same space.
Yeah, there's often this sense of misunderstanding of different values and expectations colliding. Remember that scene where Marion Oswald is horrified to find out that the papaya in the commissary is imported from Florida?
Oh yeah, she's like, why are we eating papaya from Florida when we're surrounded by papaya trees?
Right. It's this tiny detail, but it speaks volumes about the disconnect between the American desire for familiarity and the abundance of local resources.
It's almost like they're trying to recreate their own world instead of embracing what's unique and special about Panama.
Exactly. And that clash of perspectives plays out in so many ways. Throughout the whole book, you see these cultural differences bubbling up, whether it's their attitudes towards nature, their work ethic, or even just how they interact with each other.
It's a constant reminder that progress isn't always this straightforward path to a better future. It can have all sorts of unintended consequences.
Like ripples in a pond spreading outward and affecting everything in their path.
Speaking of ripples, let's go back to Valentina and Renata for a moment. Remember their efforts to save their town, Gatun, from being flooded.
Oh yeah, that's right. They represent a different kind of ambition, right? A collective fight for survival and recognition.
Their determination to hold on to their land and their community is both inspiring and heartbreaking. It shows how resilient people can be in the face of adversity.
But it also underscores just how challenging it is to resist the forces of progress, especially when those forces are backed by a global superpower.
It raises the question, what does progress really mean? Who gets to define it? And is there a way to achieve it without sacrificing the well-being of entire communities?
Those are questions that resonate throughout the entire book. And Henriquez doesn't offer any easy answers, but she forces us to confront them, to think critically about the stories we tell ourselves about ambition and success.
And to recognize that history is never a simple story of winners and losers. It's a complex tapestry of individual experiences shaped by larger forces beyond our control.
It's amazing how Henriquez manages to balance these big ideas about progress and power with these smaller, more intimate moments that make the characters feel so real, so relatable.
Yeah, like those scenes where we see Ada meticulously sewing, finding comfort and a sense of purpose in that simple act.
Right, or those moments with Marion Oswald trying to make her new house in Panama feel like home. You know, those little rituals we all have to create a sense of normalcy.
Exactly. They're not just figures in a historical drama. They're real people dealing with real emotions, trying to make sense of their world.
And it's not just about individual struggles either. Henriquez also does a brilliant job of portraying the different layers of division in Panama. It's not just Americans versus Panamanians, right?
Right, it's much more complex than that. There are racial and social and economic divisions within those groups as well. You see it in the workplace, in social settings, even within families.
Like those tensions between the American and West Indian workers on the canal,
Yeah.
united by their labor, yet separated by the system that clearly favors one group over the other.
And even among the Panamanians themselves, there's a whole spectrum of experiences shaped by class, ethnicity, and access to power.
It's like Henriquez is holding up a mirror to society, showing us how these different forms of inequality intersect and reinforce each other.
It's a reminder that progress, whatever that means, doesn't necessarily benefit everyone equally. And it makes you wonder whose voices get heard and whose get silenced in the process.
It's a question that resonates far beyond the scope of the novel, isn't it? It challenges us to be more critical of the stories we're told, to seek out different perspectives, to dig deeper.
Absolutely. So as we get to the final chapters of The Great Divide, it becomes clear that this isn't just a historical novel. It's a story that grapples with some pretty profound questions about ambition, loss, and the search for meaning in a world that's constantly changing.
And the ending is both satisfying and thought-provoking. Henriquez doesn't tie everything up neatly in a bow. She leaves us with some lingering questions, much like the legacy of the canal itself.
Yet that encounter between Ada and Omar at Marion Oswald's funeral really sticks with you. It's a moment of shared grief and understanding, a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, human connection can endure.
And that life goes on. The canal is finished, but its impact on the people and the landscape continues to unfold.
So what are we left with after this deep dive into the Great Divide? A sense of awe, I think, at the sheer scale of the canal project, but also a deeper understanding of the human cost of progress.
Henriquez challenges us to think about the meaning of ambition, the weight of our choices, and the importance of empathy in a world that can often feel very divided.
We really encourage you to check out The Great Divide and immerse yourself in this world that Henriquez has created. It's a story that will stay with you long after you finish reading it. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe to our channel for more bookish adventures and hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge, and we will see you on the next episode.